Allen, when he's hot, is filthy.
He's moving, dancing in the pocket in a way
He's ridiculous.
we've never seen a quarterback do that.
Rodgers looks, lofts, right side of the end zone. He's got it! A sensational catch by James Jones!
This guy had won a Super Bowl, 2 MVPs, and was all over the place with his State Farm commercials.
No, that's my move.
The discount double check?
No, that's my touchdown dance, man.
Best player on earth. By such a measure, it's really not fair to compare other players to him.
But somehow within 6 years, he became one of the most hated players in NFL history.
The commentary is about you being the most disingenuous athlete of my lifetime.
That fall from grace didn't just happen in one moment. It was a slow accumulation of choices, on-field failures, and a growing gap between what he said and what he did. The Jordan Love pick in 2020 was the first crack. The COVID controversy in 2021 was a real flip, and once his play started to slip too, there was nothing left to hide behind. He won his final MVP in 2021.
2021 AP Most Valuable Player is Aaron Rodgers.
Then lost to the 49ers at home in the divisional round.
Kick was down the middle and good! 49ers win it!
Then missed the playoffs entirely in 2022. Went on a darkness retreat to then demand a trade to the New York Jets.
Breaking news. Aaron Rodgers officially is being traded to the New York Jets,
Claiming they were Super Bowl candidate, only to pop his Achilles on the first drive of his first game. Now he announced he's retiring after a few years later, and his legacy on the field is permanently stamped, but also off the field, permanently complicated. The weird thing is, Aaron's story almost started perfectly. Aaron Rodgers took over in Green Bay in 2008 after sitting 3 seasons behind Brett Favre, and the story itself was news coverage for months. Favre had been the guy for so long that when Aaron took over, people were looking for any reason to write him off. They said he was too skinny and just not good enough to be a real leader in the NFL.
Aaron Rodgers was coming out. The one thing that he lacked was any anticipation. He had to see a route come open, see a wide receiver come open, and that is just disturbing.
But Rodgers answered all of that by playing some of the most efficient football anyone had ever seen. And he did it with the calmness in the pocket that made everything else around him look easier than it truly was. From the moment he became the starter, his game just looked different. He moved in the pocket like he had eyes in the back of his head. He threw with touch that most quarterbacks never develop, and he made the people around him better by just being on the field. The Packers won the Super Bowl during the 2010 season, and Rodgers walked away with the Super Bowl MVP award that year, adding a championship to the resume that was already building itself into something special.
What a great championship. We congratulate you and your fans. Vince Lombardi is coming home to Green Bay. Congratulations. Thank you, Commissioner.
That Super Bowl win was important not just for what it meant then, but for what it established about Aaron in big moments. Because for years afterwards, when things went wrong in Green Bay, the default story was always about what had gone wrong around him rather than anything he had ever done wrong. He backed that up with MVP seasons in 2011 and 2014, putting him squarely in conversations with Tom Brady and Peyton Manning, the other 2 best quarterbacks of that era. Aaron threw for 4,643 yards in 2011 with 45 touchdowns and just 6 interceptions, and the numbers only told part of the story, because he was making throws that looked like something else nobody could ever do.
Rolling left toward the end zone, and touchdown Packers, James Jones.
The 2014 season was more the same. 4,381 yards, 38 touchdowns, 5 picks, and another MVP award that made him untouchable in the conversation about who was the best quarterback in the league. Those seasons hold up against any quarterback from any era, and that's not an exaggeration. With all that success came more national commercials. The State Farm commercials did something that's hard to quantify. They made him feel like your neighbor instead of a superstar. He was doing the discount double check with the guy in khakis. That kind of marketing doesn't work unless the person actually seems like they would be like that in real life. And for a long time, Aaron seemed like that guy. He had the rare combination of being taken seriously as an elite competitor while also being seen as someone you could relate to. That's a really hard balance to strike in professional sports. Even when the Packers lost in the playoffs during those years, the blame rarely stuck to Rodgers. The defense gave up too many points, or the receivers dropped passes at the wrong time. Even the offensive line couldn't hold up.
Gore gets it and powers his way in for the touchdown.
But the quarterback was almost never the story. His play was too good and the numbers were even better. His public persona was too likable for anyone to turn on him yet. That insulation wouldn't last forever, but during the Golden Boy era, he was untouchable. In April of 2020, the Packers were back on the draft board with the 26th overall pick in the first round, and they would make a selection that nobody saw coming. Green Bay traded up to take Jordan Love from Utah State, a quarterback to sit behind Rodgers for years to come.
The Green Bay Packers select Jordan Love, quarterback, Utah State.
The thing was, nobody in the organization told Aaron it was happening. General Manager Brian Gutekunst said after the pick that he didn't tell Aaron he was going to do it, and Love himself said on a conference call that he didn't know how Rodgers would react to him. That silence from the organization spoke volumes about where the relationship was headed. The GM tried to smooth it over by saying they had the best quarterback in the league and planned to compete for championships with him, but the fact he didn't even give Rodgers a heads up about the pick told a different story. Aaron had been to an NFC Championship game the season before and was a game away from the Super Bowl, and now the team he had carried for years was drafting his replacement without warning. The relationship had started to fracture, and this was the first crack, but nobody outside of the organization knew how deep that crack was until years later. That same offseason, Aaron skipped his scheduled appearance on the Pat McAfee Show, a program he had been a regular on for months at that point, and a place where he had built genuine rapport with the host and the audience. Nobody got a clear explanation for why he missed it, but the timing made it look like a message. He wasn't happy with how the organization handled things, and he was making that known the only way he knew how without saying it directly. The Packers had won 13 games in 2019, so most people were still on Aaron's side. How could you do this to an all-time quarterback? And his play in the following season backed up that questioning. The 2020 season itself was historic. He won his third MVP award, throwing for 4,299 yards with 48 touchdowns and just 5 interceptions while completing 70.7% of his passes. The numbers were absolutely absurd. He was making throws that nobody else in the league could make, and it looked like Father Time hadn't touched him at all. But the season ended the same way several of his seasons had ended before, with a loss in the NFC Championship game. And this one felt different because of everything that had happened in the months prior. In January 2021, the Packers hosted Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at Lambeau Field with a trip to the Super Bowl on the line. Aaron threw for 346 yards and 3 touchdowns, but the Packers lost 31-26 after 3 straight possessions in the fourth quarter without a touchdown when they needed it the most.
He's got the first down and this game's over. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Tom Brady are going to Super Bowl 55.
For the first time in Aaron's career, people started putting more blame on him for not showing up in the biggest moment. The defense had given up 18 points early, and Rodgers had brought them back, but when it mattered the most in the fourth quarter, the offense went silent. After the game, he said he was gutted, and that it was going to hurt for a while, and that was the first time the narrative around him started to genuinely shift. The MVP award was still his, but the questions about whether he could win another big one were starting to stick in ways that had never happened before. But nothing that happened in 2020 prepared anyone for what came next. The COVID fallout is where the real unraveling started, and it had absolutely nothing to do with how he played on the field. In August of 2021, Aaron said he was immunized, which was vague enough to mean really anything, but specific enough to imply that he had gotten vaccinated for COVID. He didn't say he got the vaccine, and he didn't say he didn't. He just said he was immunized, and everyone moved on.
Are you vaccinated, and what's your stance on vaccinations?
Yeah, I've been immunized.
Nobody pushed harder on the question because the whole thing felt like it was meant to go away on its own. But a few months later in November, Rodgers tested positive for COVID-19 and missed a game against the Kansas City Chiefs.
If you were hoping to see quarterback Aaron Rodgers on the football field this weekend, you are going to be disappointed. He's tested positive for COVID, and the way he's handled questions about whether or not he's vaccinated now has him and his fiancée under fire.
Suddenly, the vagueness became impossible to ignore. The story had been sitting there for months, and now was the only thing anyone could talk about when it came to Aaron Rodgers. He went on the Pat McAfee Show for over 45 minutes in November 2021 and said he was not some anti-vax flat earther, that he was a critical thinker who marched to the beat of his own drum, and that he believed strongly in bodily autonomy. He said he was allergic to the ingredient in the mRNA vaccine, so he couldn't get Moderna or Pfizer.
Rodgers said that he is allergic to an ingredient in the mRNA vaccines, the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines. That was one reason that he chose to pursue other potential options.
And that he had consulted with his personal doctor about a personal treatment. The CDC said there was no evidence that any COVID-19 vaccines cause fertility problems. However, Rodgers had cited concerns about becoming a father as one of his main reasons for not getting it. And the whole thing felt like someone who had found a reason to believe what he wanted to believe and then worked backwards from there. The interview lasted 45 minutes, and he spent most of it ranting about woke culture, the media, and big pharma. He questioned the science behind the NFL's protocols for unvaccinated players, the same protocols he had helped negotiate as a player's representative all the way back in 2020. He said the rules made absolutely no sense and that he was being targeted personally.
He also spoke at length about his attempt to appeal his unvaccinated status to get out of certain restrictions. He said that the NFL-NFLPA protocols in many ways are not supported by science.
And the whole thing came across as someone who was looking for any reason to be angry rather than someone who should just take accountability for his own actions. He didn't wear a mask during media interviews all season, even though the protocols required it for unvaccinated players, and the NFL reviewed the matter. The whole episode made him look like someone who was more interested in being right than caring for others, and that's a tough image to recover from no matter how good you are at football. Through all of that, Aaron still won his 4th MVP award in 2021, throwing for 4,115 yards with 37 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. The numbers were still elite.
Another blitz coming. Rodgers sees it, fires. Adams is open for the touchdown!
The MVP award didn't fix a perception problem. It actually only widened the gap between what was on the field and off it. But here's where everything gets interesting. The divisional round of the playoffs that year was the moment everything crystallized. The Packers hosted the San Francisco 49ers at Lambeau Field in January 2022 with a trip to the NFC Championship on the line. It was 14 degrees at kickoff with a wind chill of 0, one of the coldest games in Lambeau history, and the Packers were favored to win by a lot. Aaron went 20 of 29 for 225 yards, but the offense managed just 1 touchdown all game. With a few seconds left, Robbie Gould kicked a 45-yard field goal to win it.
Kick was down the middle and good! 49ers win it!
The 49ers won 13-10, and Rodgers fell to 0-4 in career playoff starts against the 49ers, the first quarterback in NFL history to lose 4 playoff game starts to a single opponent. The way he played in that game, the way the whole season had gone, it felt like the beginning of the end. He couldn't beat the 49ers in the playoffs, and that had become the defining fact of his postseason legacy in a way nobody had wanted. And that brings us to the worst season of his career, the darkness retreat, and the moment he finally asked out of Green Bay. The 2022 season was the worst of Rodgers' career as a starter in the past 10 seasons just because of how the team played around him. He threw for 3,695 yards with 26 touchdowns and 12 interceptions, his most interceptions since his first year as a starter in 2008. The Packers went 8-9 and missed the playoffs entirely. This was the first time in Matt LaFleur's 4 seasons as coach that Green Bay didn't make the postseason, and a lot of that fell on the quarterback not playing at the level he had played at for most of his career. The throws weren't as sharp, and the overall feel of the offense was different from what it had been during his MVP years. The final game of that season was on Sunday Night Football in January 2023 against the Detroit Lions at Lambeau Field. The Packers needed to win to get into the playoffs, and they were at home. The atmosphere almost felt like it might be the last time Rodgers ever played in Green Bay. He went 17-27 for 205 yards with 1 touchdown and an interception, and the Packers lost 20-16.
And the Green Bay Packers are eliminated. Seattle will go to the playoffs.
After the game, he walked off the field with Randall Cobb, gazing into the stands, possibly soaking up the sights and sounds of a stadium he had called home for nearly 2 decades. He said at some point the carousel comes to a stop and it's time to get off, and he said that's what needed to be contemplated. He didn't say whether he was going to get back on or not, but that's what he was going to be doing during that time period. In February 2023, Rodgers went on a 4-day darkness retreat in southern Oregon at a place called Sky Cave. It was a partially underground hobbit-like structure with 300 square feet of space, no light at all, a queen bed, a bathroom, and a meditation mat on the floor. He said before going in that he was hoping to have a better sense of where he was at in his life, but that he was not going to just figure out whether he would play in 2023 or retire. He came out early and said he still didn't know what he wanted to do, which was the most Rodgers thing possible. After weeks of not saying whether he wanted to play or retire, he finally demanded a trade to the Jets in April of 2023. The Packers agreed to send him to New York for multiple draft picks, and it marked the end of an era in Green Bay that had lasted 18 years. He had been the face of the franchise for nearly 2 decades, and now he was leaving because the relationship had become unsalvageable. The organization had moved on when they drafted Jordan Love, and Aaron decided that he didn't want to be a part of the rebuild, so he got out. The thing was the way he handled the whole situation, the silence, the darkness retreat, the slow build up to a trade request, it all added to the perception that he was someone who was hard to read and hard to trust. But the Jet saga was supposed to be a fresh start, the opportunity to write a different ending. Instead, it became the place where the legacy question got even more complicated. When Aaron got to New York, he brought his guys with Alan Lazard signed with the Jets in free agency, Randall Cobb came over in a trade, and Nathaniel Hackett was hired as an offensive coordinator, the same Hackett who had been the head coach in Denver who just got fired after one season. It was a clear attempt to recreate the environment Rodgers had in Green Bay, to build a team that catered to how he wanted to play, and it raised expectations immediately. The Jets hadn't made the playoffs in over a decade, and now they had a 4-time MVP quarterback who was talking about winning a Super Bowl before the season even started. 4 snaps into the 2023 season, Aaron dropped back to pass. His right leg buckled. He tore his Achilles, and it was over in an instant. The Jets went on to finish 7-10 and missed the playoffs, and the whole experiment had to start over from scratch with Rodgers rehabbing and the team trying to figure out what it was without him. He said he feared that the injury would end his career. However, he also hinted at the fact that he might come back historically fast from the Achilles tear, coming back that same season, an injury that typically takes at least a year to return from. He talked about how it might be possible to come back that same season, but eventually he admitted that was never going to happen. He spent the year rehabbing and watching from the sideline, and the Jets cycled through other quarterbacks while trying to stay competitive, and nothing worked the way anyone had hoped. Before the 2024 season, an Action Network poll of over 3,000 fans voted Rodgers the most annoying player in the NFL with 24% of the vote. Out of over 1,600 players in the league at that time, he got nearly a quarter of the vote, which is remarkable in the worst way possible. He came back in the 2024 season for the Jets and played fine, but nothing to write home about. Then before the 2025 season, the same poll came out with the same result. Rodgers voted the most annoying player again, 2 years in a row with the same outcome. In June 2025, Aaron signed a 1-year deal worth up to $25 million with the Steelers. He told Pat McAfee soon after that he was pretty sure 2025 would be his last season, and that he was finishing with a lot of love and fun and peace for the career he had.
Yeah, I would like to know when it is your last year, just because.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is it. That's why we just did a 1-year deal, finishing with a lot of love and fun, and it's been a long run, and I've enjoyed it. And
that there was no better place to finish than with one of the most cornerstone franchises in the NFL. He played the season and had his moments where he looked like the old version of himself, especially late in the year when he was making throws that reminded you why he was a 4-time MVP. He finished the season completing 65% of his passes for 3,322 yards with 24 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, and the Steelers made the playoffs. His final game was a wild-card loss to the Texans, where he was sacked 4 times and completed just 51% of his attempts. And his last pass of the game was intercepted and returned for a touchdown.
A lot of suitors knocking on his door for that as well.
Here's an interception for good measure. It's picked off by Bullock, and Rodgers is in his way, trying to make the tackle, can't, and it's a touchdown, Texans.
After the game, he said he wasn't going to make any emotional decisions, and that it was a fun year with a lot of adversity, but a lot of fun, and that this was a really good part of his life, coming to Pittsburgh and being part of that team. He said he was disappointed, and that was as close to a retirement announcement as we got, but the writing had been on the wall for months at that time. Now in 2026, Aaron is back with the Steelers for what everyone expects to be his final season. He said he already plans to retire after this year, and the legacy question is one that nobody can fully answer yet because the story is still being written. The numbers say he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, and the tapes say he's one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play. But the public persona says he's someone who made it easy to root against him, and all three of those things are true at the exact same time. The through line of this story isn't about football anymore. It's about the difference between what somebody says and what somebody does, and what happens when that gap gets too wide to ignore. Aaron was great on the field for a long time, and his play kept most people from turning on him fully. But once his play started to slip and his talking got louder, there was nothing left to hide behind. He won 4 MVPs and a Super Bowl, and his career numbers are staggering. 63,399 passing yards, 508 touchdowns, a 102.6 passer rating. All of it the resume of someone who belongs in Canton for sure. But the immunized moment, the media rants, the darkness retreat, the 2 votes for most annoying player in the NFL, all of it is also part of the resume, and you can't really separate the two. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer and a permanently complicated public figure, and both of those things are true no matter how much anyone wants to simplify it. The Golden Boy era feels like it belongs to a completely different person now, and the most hated player era feels like it belongs to someone the first person wouldn't even recognize. So there you have it. Watch this next video if you haven't already, and subscribe if you're new. Thanks for watching.